Hi, I'm Alexandra Carbone, and I wanted to talk to you about my rideshare reality. A lot of people are talking about sexual harassment and assault, and that happens on Ubers and Lyfts. And so that kind of made me want to think about talking about it from a driver's perspective because, like, obviously, I mean, I'm a woman, I'm in a car too, so I totally appreciate the passengers. And sometimes I take Uber Lyft, and so, I totally think drivers should be screened and background checked and all that. But it's just weird that everybody's always really concerned about the passengers and no one ever really even thinks about the drivers when the drivers are, I'm out there like late at night or whatever. I go out whenever and any time of the day. And a lot of times people get in the car and they're like, oh my God, you drive? Like, you're a woman, like your husband lets you do that and stuff. And so it can be it can get kind of wild sometimes. Like, one of the really scary things that happens is like picking up a room full of guys from a car full of guys from a strip club, and they just have like a really gross energy. And um, I've never had anything like super bad happen to me personally. I'm sure it does happen to drivers that they get assaulted or raped. I've been, grabbed. I've been, said things to me that I didn't want to hear or want to know. I've had people get really gross in my car, start like hooking up to really, really far extent that is completely inappropriate and like not really know how to deal with it. But back to the thing with, yeah, so picking up like a room full of guys, for example, at the strip club, and then like there's all this stress, right? Because I can't really like turn down rides that easily. Like if I'm working to get a bonus or something, which I really need to make sure that it costs, that I get enough money because I need to make that bonus. I can't just like turn down rides. I actually had a limit to how many rides I could turn down and get the bonus. So I always have that in my mind. I also drove over there and, just sank like 5 to 10 minutes in there trying to just pick these people up. And then it's like probably a good ride too, like if it's coming from like a strip club, because it's like, they usually are far. And I eventually stopped taking them because they just got gross and weird. And another thing that happened to me too is that like the worst kind of thing that ever happened to me in the car was I picked up two really drunk guys, and one sat in the back and one sat next to me, and the guy in the back was like, can you drop me off and then drop my friend? And I was like, sure, okay. And actually the guy in the back was the one who ordered the Uber. And so we were driving, and the guy was pleasant, like we had a nice talk about, jazz and whatever. And the guy sitting in the front, which it kind of should have been a red flag that he was like sitting in the front even, I guess, but he was sort of like half passed out, really drunk, and he kind of came to for a second, and he looked at me, and I was like, oh God, what? And he put his hand on my leg, and I was just like, oh my God, like panic, right? I was like, person touching me. And so I threw an elbow and he was sort of like, and sort of passed out the other way. And then there was a second where I didn't know what was happening. Like, I was like, that was really weird because there's one guy behind me now and one guy to my right. He just grabbed my leg. Like, I was waiting for him to say something and he didn't say anything. And I was like, what's going to happen? Like, is this some kind of setup? He's going to put like a freaking rope around my neck. And so I was kind of like, ugh. And I was like, I just been touched. And I was like, Charles or whatever his name was. And he was like, yeah. And I was like, remember how you wanted me to drop you and then drop your friend? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, well, that's not going to happen because number one, he's too drunk and I can't really like get him out of the car. And number two, he just grabbed my leg. And so then like that guy was really actually nice and apologetic and like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And of course you don't have to do that. And so that was great. But like what if he had just actually then what happened was, he had to get out with that together because I wasn't going to take the friend home. And he was like, it's okay, I'll just call another one. And I was like, you can't do that. Like, what if you get another like girl? Like, he just grabbed my leg. What if you get another female driver? Like, you can't You can't do that. And he was like, yeah, it'll be okay. All right, thank you. You know, and I knew he was going to call another one with this guy who had just like assaulted someone, basically like grabbed my leg. And so, and it was like nothing that like terrible happened to me in terms of like the scheme of things that could happen to you, but it was really scary because you don't know in the moment, just like I don't know when there's a room full of guys from the strip club, like what is gonna, what's gonna go down now, and you sort of realize like how vulnerable you are, and are these people background checked, you know, is this person like the person that I'm actually supposed to take, or is it some random friend? Invariably, like the friend is always just like gross and weird, and so and you know, maybe in that case the person who ordered the Uber was like my ally in the whole thing, and I don't want to give them a bad rating, but it's just sort of, you know, it's not really thought through. It's kind of the point of like what they're throwing these drivers into. And to give another example, like they have those for a while they had these, Lyft had these lights that when you show, when they arrive, it shows the person's name, the passenger's name, so that they know that like, oh, that's their car, you know, if they're somewhere that like 10 Lyfts show up. So they wanted to give me one of those, and I was like, I don't want that. That's one of my number one, you know, just checks of like, if this is the person I'm even supposed to pick up. Do they know my name, and do they know my name, and do I know theirs? So that needs to happen. So if you tell someone who I'm sitting there looking for, they can just come up and be like, yeah, it's James, and get in the car, and then they're like in my car before I can even figure it all out, you know what I mean? So I was just like, I couldn't believe that they would do that to the drivers. They just never think about it from that perspective. And so yeah, I don't know, whatever. We live in, you know, a crazy world. There's people who do bad things. There's bad Uber drivers, there's bad Lyft drivers, there's bad passengers, and we just need some like checks so that people are safe, and so that these things don't happen, and that if they do happen, that they're dealt with appropriately, because they're not dealt with appropriately on my end, and they're not dealt with appropriately on the passenger's end, because as far as I can do, all they really do from the driver's perspective is just, oh, you'll never be matched with that passenger again. So it's like, okay, thanks. But you know, did you kick that person off the platform? I don't even know. Did anybody look into it? Like, nobody followed up with me, so I don't think so. So yeah, that's what I have to say about that. You know, those are my experiences driving, and hope that was helpful to you. And like us on Facebook, all that stuff, share this, and we want to hear your rideshare reality too, so get in touch. Thanks.